Hi, welcome to the Modern Human Podcast with Wendy.
And Brenda. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and for those of you that have children, school-age children, I should say, you know what May is like. It's very busy, very busy. There's a lot of extra things going on.
Award shows and concerts. And
preparing for the end of the year.
Yeah.
So that's the world that we're in, and we won't always be there, so we're grateful. Yes. And that kind of leads us into this month's painting, and I'm going to show you it here. This is this month's painting, and it is about an appreciation of the past and the present to create like a real positive future. So it's kind of a beautiful way to begin, because this painting originally started years ago, actually, I think during COVID.
Wow.
Really. Like 1920, maybe. Yeah. So right around there. And this painting never felt done. And that's where you just have to trust and you don't force things. It never really like I'd look at it and I loved aspects of this painting because this is what it looked like before. Right. And then this is what it looks like now. So you can see in it this huge transformation that took place, but really allowing for this grace of space and trusting the process. And I feel like that's really important because it's like, that's how our lives are. You know, there could be aspects of your life that you might not really enjoy. Like there are parts of like this painting that's symbolizing that, right? This old version. I really enjoyed all of it. And I channeled it completely. And they were like, nope, put the Sphinx here, put this Anubis here, and do, the polar bear. And it didn't feel complete. And there was something about it I just didn't like. It was good, but it didn't feel right. It's not like, but it's just whatever. And then so many years, fast forward later, now I had the wisdom and the energy and maybe the ability, and maybe because even the planet didn't have that information yet, now I could actually add this other layer on to this painting. And I feel like that's exactly what this month is about. It's about really taking your life, parts of your past, and kind of transforming them now, because we have different information, different energy available to us, to add another layer. And so in some ways, in these past months, it's about, it has been about really learning how to come to terms with these separate parts of yourself, like with your throat chakra last month. And the month before that was really this process of becoming this balanced, whole kind of fifth dimensional being. So this month is it's not about getting rid of your past. It's not about, cutting off your dysfunctional parts and moving into this, future. It's about taking who you are, because all of the things that have happened to you, they're sacred. Even the bad parts are sacred. All the good parts are sacred. Even the superficial parts, they're sacred. And kind of taking that and saying, hey, with consciousness, how do I take all of these beautiful pieces and create this beautiful symphony?
So the honoring of all that you are and have been and will ever be, it's really taking the now and respecting, and I really like the word honoring, the sacredness of every experience you have ever had, and whatever relationship you have with those experiences, whether you liked it or didn't like it, they mattered, and they build into this new thing. The energy, everything we've been talking about now for months is this access to divinity within us, around us, and on the planet. So everything that we have been thus far has led us to these moments, to these awakenings, to these openings. And how do you utilize these new frequencies, these new knowings? And those are simple words that really do not necessarily identify how all of this information comes to you. You might not see. You might be feeling more. You might, I don't know, act more, or I don't know if I'm making sense with that one, but just we all do this in different ways, and however you're utilizing it and integrating with it, it's perfect. And we need you to be you in this. And I feel like that's an element of this painting, is that no matter where you are in the circle of it, it doesn't matter, because you're going to access the whole parts of your being eventually, no matter how you get there,
Yeah, because last month's painting was that divine spark.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, however, you're uniquely wanting to show up and your authenticity, right? So that's kind of what you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about. So taking that, honoring whatever that is, and then dreaming and creating, what do you want to do, And then, yeah. And I feel like taking the shame out as you're kind of maybe recovering some of these stories. For example, like the polar bear here in this picture, it's like, when you know better, you do better. Maya Angelou, or, that's her famous, that's not all the quote. I don't know. Those parts of it, you understand what I'm saying. I'm not Maya Angelou. She's amazing. But like this polar bear, right? It's like, when we know better, we know that, we're impacting the environment around us, right? We know that we have issues with trash, and we know that, we haven't been honoring the land. We're coming into this, we're awakening to this. And so what do you do when you're awakening to a part of yourself that you're realizing that has been dysfunctional or has been
Neglected.
behaving poorly or badly without judging, right? Or out of pain, right? We've been acting out of pain or out of awareness. We didn't know that by hurting the earth, we're hurting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're coming into this awareness. And so what do you do with that awareness? And I feel like that's part of this month too. Like, I'm aware that I wasn't always using my power appropriately, or I wasn't treating myself well. What do we do in those moments? And that's what this month is kind of about. So it's about taking whatever it was before, right? And recognizing, taking responsibility for it. And now, what do we do with it now? What are we choosing to create?
And I'm going to say this in a very human way. It's like, it really is this understanding that it is a part of your foundation. It is a part of the awakening process of you. And if you weave the past into your future, it is out of balance. And you will create and manifest a reality where your past will become a part of your future. There's no judgment of that. It means that it needs to. There is an energy, there is a knowing in the nuances of your being that allows you to let go of that resistance, to let go of that dis-ease, to let go of trauma, shame, abuse. You can do that. And it is this honoring that it is that you have felt that you see that part of you, you hear it, you validate it, and you love it. And it sits in your foundation of this beautiful building of you, in this metaphor of you. It's there, and it's gorgeous, and it's magnificent and wondrous and powerful, and all of these positive things. Nothing bad is happening, and yet you leave it in the foundation. And that's an element of this. And this isn't concrete. It's funny, I'm talking about foundation, talking about it's not concrete, because there is an energy of it, a surrendering in it, and honoring that it stays in the foundation, that I release the need for this. What were you?
Yeah, so I have a question about that. So when you're saying, hey, there's these parts of your past, and you just said, like, they'll come with you if you're
weaving with them, if you're
weaving. So
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? I feel like that confused me.
So when we weave with our past, meaning we are still having triggered responses, meaning things are upsetting us in a way that when we unravel them, we understand the pattern. We take responsibility that this pattern of unworthiness is something I felt often in this lifetime, in these experiences, which means that the unworthiness is being woven into your reality, your now. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. And so as many times as you may need, you meet your unworthiness, you tell it, I love you so much, and that makes so much sense. I can remember feeling unworthy in certain experiences. And I'm going to let go of this need to feel unworthy. I'm letting it go. I release the need for this shame, guilt, unworthiness, anger, whatever. And I'm letting it go. And the more that you show up in that, the more it is let go. Meaning that you show up as many times as you need to show up for the nuances that arise. And this is why we're always talking about just show up for what it is.
Right. Whatever is emotionally arising. And that makes a lot of sense, because it's like, what I was shown, what was happening this month was really moving into, the number 9, actually. Sorry. just guess something. 9. But it's this idea of 3 threes, right? So that's 9. But 3, the number 3, and it's kind of like taking the 2, which is the polarity. So worthiness and unworthiness. We talked about this in some of our retreats in our classes, where, the bigger picture of our human experiences. Let's say I want to learn about worthiness. Right? To really learn about worthiness, you have to experience unworthiness, right?
Yeah.
And so you're oscillating between unworthiness and worthiness. And this could be lifetimes, right? And it probably is lifetimes of moving and experiencing different aspects of worthiness and unworthiness, right? And as soon as you have and it can hold both equally, meaning, and there is magnetics to it. I'm kind of getting chills. It's like as soon as you can hold both equally, like unworthiness and worthiness in the same breath, right? Then you can consciously choose what else beyond that. So you're like, well, I've experienced all of it is, and there's no judgment on all, because I understand the unworthiness and why I felt. I understand worthiness and why I feel. So what do I choose now consciously? And that's why a 3 is a creative energy. So you move from the polarity to something else. And I feel like that's what this month is about. And you're saying, so show up with the unworthiness and you continually choose, hey, unworthiness, I love you. And we're no longer this story anymore. Remember our worthiness, right? And that's why you keep showing up, because as soon as you can hold both, you're like, yes, unworthiness. Yes, worthiness. And not as a better than. That's really important. It's not about a hierarchy, like worthiness is better than unworthiness, because you really can't know worthiness without the unworthiness. So it has to be honored.
Yeah, and said another way, because it's not necessarily two separate opposing, like, okay, spectrums of things. It's like, no, it's the wholeness of it, right? So in this way, we're experiencing everything to then surrender to no thing. And it is the no thing that we masterfully create. This is the effortlessness and the ease of, I just called someone one day and then all of a sudden I'm doing da 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 da. That is the effortlessness of creating in the no thing. Because everything is in alignment, and these are simple words that don't necessarily cover all of it. But we must know this everything to then honor it. With no judgment. Truly, I am unworthy. I am worthy. I am both. How do these integrate? Well, then we understand this soup of all the nuances of unworthiness, which is going to have elements of shame and guilt and attunement. Even there's these nuances of our human experience that we unravel in this soup of everything in this element of our being. And then in that soup of surrender, it becomes no thing. This darkness, this beauty. Stillness, yes. That's powerful.
It's powerful. I mean, these are the secrets to the universe, in some ways.
It is, though. It is how we've created this reality, this earth.
And so it really is shifting your relationship with these maybe shameful parts or unworthiness parts, because just like the polar bear, how we started with that conversation, it's like, you have to own, we have to take responsibility that we also didn't treat everyone well, because we weren't treating ourselves well.
For sure.
If we're not listening to ourselves, we're probably not listening to others. It goes both ways. Or if you are mistreating others, you're probably mistreating yourselves.
You are.
And vice versa. If you are treating others well, you're probably, gets complicated.
And we've said this before, and it's not one thing. It's not, you were hard on yourself in this one area and hard on someone else, let's say, in this one area. It doesn't mean the rest of you is hard on you, but you are then meeting a part of you, maybe a small part of you, maybe a big part, doesn't matter. Taking responsibility for your reality. This is you showing up in this mindful now presence of all that is. This creates this foundation that empowers, like feeds and builds up the greatness that is within you.
Right. And then choosing, what it is that you want to create. Do you want to continue to mistreat? Does that feel good, right? Does that feel good to yourself? And just really owning, how that makes you feel, one way or the other. Right. And then you can powerfully choose, and then by choosing, you are taking, honestly this creative force that is your divine nature, and kind of help create this new reality, on this planet. And that's partly what this painting is about. There's a lot going
There's
on.
so much going on, and it's so lovely. So much of this right now in this conversation is so new to all of us, even us, right? So part of what's unraveling for us in a personal way is that we're beginning to really understand the dysfunction of ourselves and others. Like, we've talked a lot about how we can't believe that we've had relationships with people that have been out of balance for so long, truly, where people are invalidating us or manipulating us. And we're just like, oh yeah. And part of that is because we grew up in environments where that was very normal. So unraveling that subconscious, going, hey, does that really work for me? Because I'm going to be honest with you, it worked for years and years and years. And I was like, oh. And all of a sudden it's like, no, this isn't really working for me. Now I dedicate myself to loving myself more and more every day. And so, part of that unraveling is like, I actually think that that's manipulative. And I'm like, oh, it is manipulative, and that's okay. And then I can set boundaries accordingly, and all of this really good, great stuff. And so just honoring that we have so much help right now. We have so much light opening within us. And I don't even know if I love those words about it, but there is such peacefulness in all of this because it is uncomfortable. It is, I think your painting is like perfect because it's kind of like a lot going on. And for me, I feel that way right now. I feel like there's a lot going on. And so being able to honor all that is within me in ways that I couldn't necessarily observe it before, and now I can. And so like honoring that, like, what am I noticing on the news? What am I noticing within school systems or government systems? Like, I'm noticing certain things that I maybe wasn't ready for.
Right. And as you become ready, right, and that's where if something is entering into your consciousness, you're ready, right? Yeah. Otherwise it would be invisible to you, really.
Yeah. And so, I think that's partly what we're naming, right? Is that our consciousness, our awareness of certain things, that we really are only giving ourselves exactly what we need in any given moment. And it does feel like, for me, these are my words, that things have begun to blow up. And I'm grateful for that. I do not look at that as, oh my God, I'm so afraid, or this is so bad. I truly do not. I feel like that's part of the resistance sometimes. We can get trapped there of like, no, everything's okay. And I needed to see nuances that I wouldn't have been able to unravel if this thing hadn't broken apart, and then I could see the underbelly of it or something.
Right. It's a necessary part of this. Right. It's a necessary part of growth. I mean, part of growth is recognizing something doesn't work anymore, or you want it to work in a different way, right? Without judgment, it's just like, because we're constantly growing and expanding. So within growth, there's a lot of mini deaths and a lot of mini little life, right? So there's a lot of new birth and death, all, like this doesn't work. So it's kind of like, partly that's why Anubis is in this painting, right? And really trusting this process. This painting is called Awakening. Just the first time I've labeled something that.
No, I didn't.
Which is so weird.
That's
because we always knew we were in a spiritual awakening, like for years, and none of the paintings wanted to be called that, but this one is, and that makes sense because we are waking up to these things. And so what do we do when we become aware of our own behavior or other people's behavior that no longer aligns with us? And it is an opportunity to kind of create something new. So even though something is dying, there is something that is beginning to live, or birthing. So it's kind of exciting too.
No, it really is exciting if you can allow yourself to surrender to the moment and just take a couple of deep breaths and feel into this divinity. And that's my word. Just feel into the goodness of life. Feel into love, or whatever word works for you. Just feel into that positive feeling space. And you can begin to unravel this force of greatness, of goodness, of love, of abundance. It's literally weaving into everything. Meaning our biologies are shifting, meaning plants are shifting. I mean, feel the energies of this. It's like, wow. I'm getting huge chills. I love that so much.
Yeah. And so you're not alone, really.
Yeah.
And some of it can feel overwhelming, right? And so for sure. And just staying present in the moment, it can be very helpful. That's what helps me, is just breathing and staying focused on what's going on within your own being, or staying, focused on what's going on in your own backyard. For those that are feeling called to help beyond that, that could be your position on the planet, and we honor that position that you are taking, meaning like you are in an advocacy position, or you are dealing with politics because you're a politician, but I'm not a politician, right? So I have to stay focused on what I can control, and noticing what makes me feel good, even information, in this information age, we do have to put boundaries around, not taking everything in, because that is almost gluttonous in a way. And so if you could have access to everything, I'm having deja vu in this moment. If you can have everything, how do you know what not, how do you know your limits and boundaries? And that's partly what we're all dealing with. Like, I've been taking in everything because it was so exciting, and wow, there is a negative aspect to this, which is too much.
Right. Everything in balance.
Right. And so finding your own balance within that, and trusting how it makes you feel. If you're not feeling good, don't do it. I mean, that's kind of a good rule of thumb.
And noticing where your limits are. And part of learning what our limits are, our boundaries, is that we kind of cross them. We do cross them. We're like, wait, I feel like out of balance, right? Like, we talk about working on the computer all the time.
Or on your phone too much.
Whoa, I've been on the computer too long. Like, I'm kind of a zombie or whatever. However you identify all that within yourself. That's us. We become zombies.
No.
A little bit fried.
Yeah, and just out of the body. Yeah. And so figuring out, and so you're doing an amazing job. I mean, we all are, really. And so just know that, like, and take that in. Like, Spirit really wants us to know that, the universe wants us to know, like, this is not an easy thing to do, is to transition, is to move from a 2 to a 3 kind of. It's not an easy process. Because you're almost aware of the death within you and the life at the same time. And so that awareness is uncomfortable. So, but there's also beautiful energy helping around it. You can see here in the painting. So the painting's over here. So you can see that.
In closing, for my part of it, I would invite you to just honor everything that has come before these moments. Just honoring your past, honoring your future, honoring your ancestors and those that will come after you. Just honoring the foundation of your being and letting it go. Because if you can have that acceptance and forgiveness of it, that's the freedom of this energy, of this frequency that is coming forward. It is letting it go in a way that you honor it as a part of your foundation, and you consciously, intentfully, lovingly, and powerfully are creating whatever it is that you wish, whatever it is that you want.
Feels good.
Feels so good. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all of your feedback. I love you so much. Can't wait to talk again.
Next week.
Unravel all this
together
new stuff. Yes.
All right. Until next time.